Welcome to the Joy of Cruising podcast with your host, award-winning author Paul C. Thornton, a weekly conversation with the amazing cruisers featured in the Joy of Cruising trilogy, comprised of The Joy of Cruising, Cruising Interrupted, and new release, The Joy of Cruising Again. Each book is a compilation of features about cruisers and cruise and travel personalities from around the world. It's the next best thing to cruising. Hearing about cruising from the unique and diverse perspectives of Paul's amazing guests.
Hello, passionate cruisers. This is Paul, and I am delighted to welcome this week to the Joy of Cruising podcast, Walter Biscardi, founder of Where's Walter Travel. Sometimes I mention passionate cruisers I interview who move me to add a destination or experience or vessel to my ever-expanding bucket list, or to book one already on my bucket list. Walter was one such passionate cruiser who moved me to booking a cruise on Virgin Voyages. Here's the thing, I hadn't interviewed him. I met Walter on YouTube, where I incessantly watch cruise videos when I am recording or editing a podcast episode or just listening to music. I happened upon a video where Walter was reviewing every food venue on Virgin Voyages, which was on my bucket list. Walter seemed so genuine and impressed by the food, and most importantly, he was persuasive. We booked Scarlet Lady for our first cruise on Virgin Voyages next month. Since viewing Walter's Virgin Voyages video, we've become not just friends and followers of each other on social media, but collaborators. Where's Walter Travel is the Joy of Cruising podcast travel agent partner. So, shameless plug, you can now book your cruises through the Joy of Cruising podcast. Walter is relatively new to the travel business, yet I wanted him as a guest on the Joy of Cruising podcast based on the difference he has made in the 15 months or so he has been involved in cruise. Walter's appeal is mainly as a cruise content creator who I have found that I can relate to mainly because of his relevant and incisive commentary, outstanding production quality, and everyman persona depicted on his videos. As we became friends, I learned of his background prior to becoming a travel agent. Over 30 years in film, television, and marketing. Walter owned creative agencies in Atlanta for 20 years. Heard of the Food Network's Good Eats with Alton Brown? Walter was fortunate to be a part of Peabody Awards for the show. Walter started Where's Walter TikTok in December 2021. He wanted to offer honest information about cruising so folks could make an informed decision on whether to take a cruise, noting there was so much bad and incorrect information out there as cruising restarted. By April 2022, his audience started asking him to become a travel agent. In October 2022, Where's Walter Travel was launched and realized virtually immediate success. Welcome, Walter, to the Joy of Cruising podcast.
Hey, thank you, Paul. So excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
How you doing?
I'm doing absolutely amazing. It's a beautiful day down here in Orlando. How is it where you are?
50s maybe. You know, I like it a little warm. I'm in North Carolina, as you know. I'm just looking forward to the spring. Before we discuss your fascinating career prior to cruising, and then your new cruising career, another amazing story, tell our listeners about yourself in general. Where you're from, where you live, family, anything you would like to share.
So I am originally from the upstate New York, Hudson Valley, born and raised proud Italian American. So I grew up in the kitchen with my grandmother, my family. Christmas Eve every year with the Feast of the Seven Fishes. So, you know, food is a big part of my history. And growing up, I actually wanted to be a filmmaker. So I went to Syracuse University and ended up with a 32-year career in film, television, documentary. Had my own creative agencies in Atlanta for almost 20 years. Most people know me for Good Eats with Alton Brown. I was on that series for 4 seasons as his animator, editor, and all that good stuff. Produced multiple documentaries with President Jimmy Carter and the Carter Foundation. And then after that, I kind of got into some marketing, but that's it in a nutshell. And then once I got out of that, I was looking for another career. We've been cruising almost 20 years, and it seemed like a natural fit to transition over to cruising. So that's me in a nutshell. I've been living in the South since around 1990, Georgia, Florida, Texas, and now very happily in Orlando, the home of Mickey Mouse and Wizard.
Talk about your entree into and progression through your film, television, and marketing career? How'd you get your foot in the door?
So, I got excited about it the first time I saw animation, and I realized how animation was made. I was that kid. My grandfather had one of those 8mm film cameras with the push button so you could take one frame at a time. And I was like 10 years old making my own animated battles on the ping pong table. All the Green Army men fighting with guys. And I found out I could go to school for that. I could make a career out of that. So I went to Syracuse University, and that's where I got my training. And I was hired by CNN all the way back in 1990, right? I had a 4-year career there, primarily as a video editor. I was there right on the bleeding edge of the industry, going from editing on videotape over to editing in computers. There was this new thing called Avid that came along that completely changed the entire industry. And I'm proud to say I was the very first editor ever at CNN that had a piece from this computerized editing that went out on the air. So that was kind of cool. Did that for 5 years, met my wife there, lovely Miss Rebecca, who is always heard but never seen on camera now. After that, I actually, believe it or not, got hired by Foxwoods Resort Casino up in Connecticut. I built their entire multimedia department. And then we moved back to Atlanta, where I had about a 25-year run. I have my own creative agencies. We did a ton of corporate work. By chance, got into Good Eats with Alton Brown just by helping somebody who needed help with their editing systems. By that point, I was designing studios. I was designing creative agencies.
So in my introduction, I posed a question to my listeners. Have you heard of Good Eats with Alton Brown? For those listeners not familiar, talk about that show.
So Alton created the science behind cooking. He wasn't interested in creating another cooking show. He wanted to dig deep into the science, like, why does the butter turn brown? Why do we do what we do? And why do certain spices and chemicals interact in different ways with what we do? And he decided to do it in a very entertaining fashion. And he unapologetically borrowed from Bill Nye Science Guy. So it was essentially Bill Nye Science Guy combined with cooking, combined with pop culture. Because Alton, just like all the rest of us, was a huge television and film geek, and any opportunity we had to bring film and television. One of the best episodes that we ever did that should have been submitted for an Emmy, but he refused, was our take on Jaws, which was all about scallops. One of the best episodes he ever did. But I got connected with him on a peer sharing site where I used to write reviews all the time, where a gentleman in Atlanta said they needed help with their technical system. And I went to help him. And he ended up being the director of photography for Good Eats, which is basically the lead camera guy. And he invited me to the set. And then Alton loved these animations that I had created for another client. And I ended up being on the show for 4 seasons as animator, editor, and I'm actually in 3 or 4 of the episodes too.
Relating this to cruising, it sounds like Good Eats with Alton Brown was kind of the forerunner of, we have the Test Kitchen on Virgin Voyages, and we have Wonderland on Royal Caribbean.
Very much so. I mean, you can kind of see a difference not only in cooking, but like first in television. There were a lot of, I don't want to say copycats, but people who borrowed that style and the way he was presenting food. And after Alton, you start to see much more interest, not just in here's the ingredients, let's make it, but you see a lot more interest in why. Why are we using these ingredients? Why are we doing it in this particular way? So I think that's really cool with Alton, spread out into the culinary world. And now, like you said, we have Test Kitchen, we have wonderful Chef's Table, we have Celebration Table now on Icon. So yeah, it is kind of cool that there is this whole culinary exploration going on. And I think a lot of credit does go back to Alton.
You mentioned Emmy and Peabody Awards and other industry accolades that you played some role in. Talk about that.
Include multiple Emmy Awards and Peabody Awards. So there was a show in Atlanta that was essentially like the Spanish version of Sesame Street that we were a part of, and they were honored with multiple Emmy Awards, and we were like on the animation and some other parts of it as well. It's a wonderful show. And then Alton and Good Eats won Peabody Awards, so we were very fortunate. Directly won, 24 Telly Awards, which is an industry awards for independent filmmaking, documentary, and a lot of corporate work. Oh yeah, we were fortunate. We worked with a lot of Fortune 100 companies creating, marketing, internal pieces. We did a lot of work with NBC, the Weather Channel, CNN, and others, even Sky News, which was a lot of fun. And then just tons of independent work that we did for well over 20 years. I was very fortunate that I was able to design my own facilities, hire my own staff. We had a lot of fun with that. So yeah, I think, the biggest highlight was probably working with President Carter, and the Carter Center was obviously Alton was an amazing deal. But when you get to work with somebody like him and work on his global health initiatives, which we did a couple of feature documentaries and many, many short projects for him. That was a real honor to work with somebody like that.
Well, I tell you, if we stopped here, you would have a very fulfilling background in and of itself. But now you got a whole new pastime and profession and so on. So let's shift gears completely and talk about cruising.
You're going to love this, Paul. 2006 Caribbean Princess, 14 days. My wife doesn't do anything simply. 14 days, 10th anniversary. I absolutely positively did not want to go.
Now, if I may ask, was that her first cruise as well?
Oh yeah, both of our first cruise. Yeah. So she was a big fan of the Love Boat. So it had to be, Princess, and the Caribbean Princess, it was one of those back-to-back, East Western Caribbeans that they sell as a single cruise. And when she said that, I was like, fine, whatever, I'll go on the ship.
She almost did her first cruise as a 14-day solo.
She was ready to go solo. And I was like, fine, whatever, fine, I'll just go. Let's get this over with. And by the second or third day, we booked 2 more cruises.
Well, I was just going to say, were you bored? I guess not.
No. So here's what got me right away. First of all, you don't appreciate the size of these things until you actually get there. And the Caribbean Princess is, by today's standards, a mid-sized ship. She's not very big. But at the time, my first time seeing a ship, and we had the aft cabin, like the very aft cabin, so we were looking out over the wake. After the first night, when I realized, okay, I don't have to get in a car to go to dinner. We don't have to get in a car to go see a show. We don't have to drive back to the hotel. Like, everything is like literally right here. All I got to do is walk to the restaurant, walk up to the front to the theater, go sit up top and look at the stars, sit out on the balcony and listen to the wake. Oh my God, this is beautiful. This is nice. And then tomorrow the hotel is going to be in a different place. Oh, this is so cool. So yeah, I was hooked from the first day. I was like, oh yeah, this is for me.
As the listeners know that, I've been running sort of a informal tally of people, how many people, what percentage of people get hooked on their first cruise. I once, before I started tabulating, I kind of surmised that it's 90%. Well, I'm easily right, and you're one of that 90+%, because I do occasionally run into some, and really some big names in cruising who their first cruise didn't do it for them, and it had to grow on them. But sounds like you were hooked. Actually, sounds like you were hooked in a couple of days.
It's never about the cruise line for your first cruise. If you want somebody to have a really good first cruise, you got to get them on the right ship. And I was just very fortunate that our travel agent worked with us and put us on the right ship for that first cruise.
So how soon did you cruise again?
I think within a year. I think we had like 1 cruise every year for the first couple of years, but the first 3 were all Princess. And one of those was Alaska. Like, we went to Alaska pretty early.
I just went to Alaska, and it was like, why'd you wait so long?
Right. We're getting ready to go back. I can't wait.
What are you sailing on?
Oh, wow. We're going on the Oceania Riviera in 2025. So this is a 1,200 passenger ship. We're getting close to 20 people coming with us. It's actually a group cruise. So we can talk about that later.
Okay. So talk about some of the highlights of cruising in the early years. When I say in the early years, BC, before COVID.
So I think one of the most interesting cruises, and this was a big lesson, we've been on 10 different cruise lines now, 9 of them before COVID, and we've added one since. But I think one of the biggest and most interesting things for us is when we sailed during Hurricane Irma. We were on the Celebrity Equinox for 10 or 11 days. We left Miami 3 days before that hurricane hit St. Thomas, and that was a massive Cat 5. And our whole family thought we were nuts for going out on a cruise just as that hurricane was coming. And what we did was we made a run south all the way down to Curacao. We were not scheduled to go to Curacao. We just ran south to get below it and basically followed it back to Miami. And we had some of the best weather we've ever had. And that was when I really realized that, look, cruise ships can move, but islands can't. So sailing in hurricane season is not horrible.
What are some other early highlights?
So one of the biggest highlights for me, it's still to this day, was dinner at Remy on the Disney Fantasy. First of all, Disney is an amazing cruise line for adults. We don't have children, and we were on it as adults only. Just amazing, some of the best service, some of the best food, really happy crew. In fact, it was really cool. Our room steward happened to be partners with our dining server. So we got to know the two of them. They were a lovely couple. And our room steward liked to start playing practical jokes on us halfway through the cruise, which was a lot of fun. But then that dinner at Remy, to this day, still one of the best meals, period. Like land or sea, amazing. I'm really in love with celebrities, officers versus the guest water volleyball game that they do every final sea day. That's so much fun. I love the wide variety. People are like, what's your favorite cruise line? And I honestly don't have one. I like bits and pieces of all of them. Like Carnival has that fun squad. It's hard to beat that fun squad. They're amazing at what they do. Celebrity has amazing pool. Holland America has great service. So I think the highlights of pre-COVID was just learning how much I truly love cruising for just as a vacation style.
And then COVID came. How did that impact you? I guess you weren't really on the business side of cruising yet.
No, I was very fortunate. I wasn't there yet. In fact, what it really impacted, and it's funny, I've changed it since, but what it really impacted, I really missed being able to just sit out and watch the ocean go by or listen to the wake. That was like the biggest thing. We were one of those people that booked Virgin Voyages like the first week they went on sale. And of course, Virgin had the unfortunate history to literally launch their ship just as everything was shutting down. So our cruise was rebooked 3 times. But that's what I really, really missed. I hated not being able to sit out there and look at the water and enjoy the ship. And I really, really missed the cruise. The ships are beautiful, right? But the reason why we keep going back time and time again is because the crew takes such good care of us. We feel like family from the time we walk on. So those are the 2 things I really, really missed. And I said to Rebecca, I said, when we get back on the ship, I am just going to start recording long rolls of the wake and the views from the balcony and all of that, because I really, really missed that. And it's really funny, since the restart, I now have over 40 hours of just those scenic views on our YouTube channel that I just run in the background whenever I feel like looking out from a ship.
Talk about your first cruise after the lockdown.
Fabulous. That was the Norwegian Escape, and it was in Eastern Caribbean. And that was when the passengers were being restricted. So we had 1,800 people on a ship that holds about 4,500 people. So that was glorious. Oh my God, that was like the best cruise. I would pay extra for any cruise line that would sail at 75% capacity. That was fabulous.
I've heard situations where on those early days, it was a 4-to-1 staff to passenger ratio. I mean, I get jealous when I hear those stories. So I didn't get a chance to go on any of those early cruises where, you had much lower passenger counts than you normally would.
Yeah, and you could just tell the crew was just so excited to have us back. Like I think they were just as excited as we were, because obviously they were all out of work for a very long time. And you're right. I mean, they were like almost bending over. We were like running into crew members everywhere because there were so many of them and so few of us. But that was a really nice reintroduction to cruising, and they made us feel safe. They made us feel so welcome. And we were really glad that we were back to cruising.
So a lot of people, particularly creators, although I know you weren't at yet, but a lot of just cruise lovers hit the ground running after the lockdown ended. They just made up for lost time. So did you do that, or did you just kind of when was your next cruise after that first run back?
I want to say it was a little bit after that. They weren't right back to back, but I do remember going in. That was November 21, and I remember July 22 going on. Finally going on Virgin. Finally getting on the Scarlet Lady. I can't remember if we had one between that, but that was after going on the Norwegian Escape in November is when I started my TikTok channel, because there was so much negativity out there from people who'd never been on a cruise ship saying, oh, you're going to die, or this is going to happen, or that's going to happen, just very ignorant statements out there. And I remember being so disappointed by all of that, because we had just been on the Escape and I saw what they were doing. It's like, I tried to remind some of my friends who were concerned about it, saying, the entire world turned into a cruise ship. I said, those hand sanitizers you see everywhere, we've been doing that for 20 years on cruising, and all the wiping down and all that stuff they do, we've been doing that for 20 years on cruising. So I know that July was my next cruise, but it was January of 22, December 21, January 22 was when I started the whole TikTok channel, just to share what I felt was honest information so people can make an informed decision about whether to go back on a ship, and to let people know that you weren't going to die just because you were going on a cruise.
That second cruise back, you say, was on Scarlet Lady. Was that your only time on Scarlet Lady? Have you been back on Scarlet Lady?
That was our first time. I was so excited. Virgin Voyages doing everything different. I'm a huge fan of Richard Branson. So when he said he was coming out with a cruise line, it's going to be adults only, it's going to be different. I'm so excited. And it was the first time. I have a dear friend from high school that we've always wanted to cruise together, which never quite worked out. And this was the first time we were going to be on a ship together. We both got cheeky corner suites on the same deck. If you're ever going on a Virgin voyage, cheeky corner suite is the best cabin on the entire ship. And it was everything that they said it was going to be and more. The food was amazing. The crew was amazing, everything about it. So I've since been on 4 Virgin voyages. I have another one coming up in June, and I'm very fortunate that we are a top 100 sales agent in North America for Virgin Voyages. And according to my rep, there's about 100,000 people in North America selling Virgin Voyages. So to be in the top 100 of that is pretty doggone crazy.
Listeners, Scarlet Lady, and I alluded to this a little bit in the introduction. Scarlet Lady is kind of responsible for my friendship with Walter. Or said differently, Walter is responsible for me going on Scarlet Lady for the first time in several weeks. I was watching YouTube, and I watch cruise videos sometimes with the sound down and music playing. Sometimes I'll turn it up, but I watch cruise videos all day long, seemingly. And I saw this gentleman. Walter, from time to time, I would see his videos, but probably with the sound down. This time, I turned the sound up because he was doing a sort of a food review of Scarlet Lady, and by this time, Virgin Voyages was on my bucket list, so I knew someday I would go on Virgin Voyages. But listening to Walter's food review, I mean, I might have booked it that day. I said, it's time to get off the fence. And so we finally are going on Virgin Voyages, and it will be Scarlet Lady in April.
Nice. It's funny, when I go on the ship, it makes me feel so happy when people walk up to me and go, you're the reason why we even booked the ship, because we weren't sure. When you see a lot of the videos out there, it all concentrates on Scarlet Night or the Manor or maybe Untitled Party Dance Thing. People want to get their clicks and their views and all. But Virgin Voyages as a cruise line is actually very chill and relaxed. And their food really is good. And that's kind of the side that I wanted to focus on. It's like, yeah, there is that crazy party. Scarlet Night is the craziest, most fun party you've ever seen at sea, but that's only one night. And even on that night, you don't have to participate. You can still chill and relax. but the food really is, it really is different. And it's so nice to go on a ship where you walk on and you're not bombarded with buy a drink packet, buy a food packet, buy a photo packet, buy this packet. We've been on 4 cruises now. I've yet to pay a dime for any
Let
food.
me ask you this. Have you gotten a tattoo?
We took a big group for Thanksgiving, and one of our guests did. She got a Cheshire cat on her leg. It was great.
For the listener, Virgin Voyages is, to my knowledge, the only cruise line that has a tattoo parlor on each of their ships.
I think so. And they also have a drag queen, which is awesome. And she's amazing. That was the other thing that really is a lot of fun, is the openness of that cruise. You really are encouraged to come as you are and just be relaxed and chill. So yeah, if you're on the fence about it, like Paul said, I've got those videos out there, but talk to somebody who's actually been on the ship, somebody who's actually been on the ship. You might be very pleasantly surprised. I'll tell you, I had a guest at Thanksgiving who is hardcore carnival. And on the last day, she said, I don't know how I'm going to go back to carnival. This was amazing.
Wow. Well, I can't wait. And it's also my first transatlantic. So, with what you say about, just kind of being able to chill and the fact that it's transatlantic, I'm an off the chart introvert. And so what I like to do on cruises is just kind of, get on a lounge chair, look out at the water, write and listen to music. And so I may do that for 15 days.
On the rocks every night. That's the whiskey bar. I don't know where they find these music acts, but they're amazing wherever they find these people. That's like my chill spot at night, is on the rocks, just to hang out and listen to whoever's playing. Yeah. And by the way, I'm going to introduce you. I've got some of my best clients are going on that same cruise. So you're already going to have some friends before you get on the ship.
There you go. I told you, listeners, Walter is just invaluable. So now I know that your most recent cruise is the new world's largest ship.
Oh yeah.
Now I want to get a few thoughts about that, but before we do that, you do so much great cruising. Just give us a few highlights of your post-pandemic cruising, the last couple of years.
Oh man, I'll tell you, everything has been so much fun. I think one of the big highlights now is, we've always seen those R-class ships in port. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, there was a company called Renaissance Cruises years ago that built 8 identical ships. They only hold about 650 people. And you see them and they look so beautiful in port. Well, this past holiday, we were Christmas and New Year's, 12 nights. We were on the Oceana Serena, only 650 passengers. Went deep into the Caribbean, including Guadeloupe, which is where our absolute favorite television show is filmed, called Death in Paradise. It's a BBC show. And the ship was everything we expected it to be. Oceana was everything we expected it to be. All the food was included, top of the line service, going to some of these islands. Only 6. It was probably as close to going on the original Love Boat as we will ever get, because the ship was so small. But that is a true highlight. And I'm so excited to get back on that cruise line next year in Alaska. Thanksgiving, we went out on the Valiant Lady for 8 nights. It's the only 8-night itinerary they have. And I think we took about 30 people with us, of which at least 24 were virgins on Virgin Voyages. And it was so cool to see, so neat when you see a cruise line through new eyes.
Yes.
And it's just so cool just to see that and go, this is not what we expected. It's so much more. And then the other highlight for me was getting on the Sky Princess. That royal class from Princess is just gorgeous. I mean, absolutely gorgeous. So yeah, we've had some fun highlights, and we were on the Symphony a year ago, Christmas. And yeah, that is a fun ship to go on, an absolutely fun ship. So leading up to the Icon, those were four of the big standouts for us.
So you say you've been on Symphony. That's a good way to introduce Icon. Contrast Icon with Symphony of the Seas. I know it's slightly it's larger. It's a new class.
It
I
is.
guess.
So Icon is the first of the Icon class. And what's really cool, I mentioned that we're a top 100 Virgin Voyage agent. We were on the Scarlet Lady at the end of a cruise that Virgin Voyages invited us on when Icon came in for the first time. Now, if you've ever looked at the Miami webcam, you know that the Scarlet Lady parks right at that turning basin. So we all knew Icon was coming in. So pretty much the entire ship is up on the top deck of Scarlet Lady waiting for Icon. And I got to tell you, that had to be one of the most fun things I've ever been a part of, was watching that ship come in. She had to do the big turnaround right in front of us. She was so loud, playing so much music. The Scarlet Lady would blow in her horn like crazy. It was like this big party atmosphere. And I was not expecting to really like the ship that much, but when she came in, she was absolutely stunning. I was like, oh my God, this is a beautiful ship. And only 10 days later, we were actually on the ship. So it was kind of cool to first get to see her and then go on it. And what I want to say about Icon is that it's like a grown-up Royal Caribbean ship, almost like an adult Royal Caribbean ship. They took a lot of what I didn't like about the Oasis class, and I do love the Oasis class, but they made it better. So the flow to get around the ship is a lot better. The lines are all cleaned up, so it looks nicer. You can get directly from the promenade up to Central Park, and from Central Park right back to Surfside. There's none. They took away a lot of the dead ends. One little thing they did is deck 6, which is right above the promenade. On all the Oasis class ships, you can walk a little bit, but then you've got to go back down to the promenade, and then you can go back up. Well, now you can walk all the way across on deck 6, which is a nice flow. The Pearl Cafe is one of the most beautiful spaces you're ever going to see, especially at night when the lights are all blue and everything is beautiful. And that aqua dome takes your breath away the first time you see it. The first time you see the overlook, literally takes your breath away. The Ryan Bean bar that's right there is a coffee bar and a bar. There's a lot of celebrity in that ship. For those who don't realize, Celebrity is the sister brand to Royal Caribbean, and you can see a lot of influences from Celebrity on that ship. So it's really easy to get around. It's beautifully done. I love all the colors outside, so it's not just a white ship as you're walking around. And some of the new touches, like the Aquadome Market, oh my God, what a great place to eat. The Overlook, you could probably spend the entire week there and just chill. It's such a beautiful place to hang out. The water park is legit. I mean, it was too cold for me to try it when we were on, but that is a legit water park back there. And then you got the Hideaway Beach in the back. I think there's been way too much emphasis, and even I've talked about it, that, oh my God, this ship is so expensive. Well, first of all, it's the only ship of its kind in the world. It's a one of a kind. It is the new shiny toy, so the new shiny toy is always the most expensive. And it's $2 billion. So I kind of see why they're charging more. And I'll tell you, my favorite part of the whole thing, they put us in a ocean view balcony, a standard ocean view balcony. They redesigned the standard bathroom. And that has to be one of the best standard bathrooms we've ever seen on any cruise line. They made the shower so much bigger in the same basic space.
So let's talk about the future. What do you have booked?
We've got a group going out on the Sun Princess in October 19th of 24. Can't wait to meet that ship. First of its kind, brand new ship. We've got, I think, almost 40 people going on that one with us so far. We're booked on the Norwegian Aqua in May of 2025, so about a month after she comes out. Again, another big group going out on that one. Then we've got.
Let me jump in, Walter. The Norwegian Aqua. Have you been on either the Prima or the Viva?
We have not, no, but we saw the Viva in St. Martin over the holiday, but we have not been on one of those yet.
Okay, I was just curious about your thoughts, because we're booked on the Prima. I guess that's in 25. Yeah, we're going to go to Norway.
Well, it's going to be interesting because, the Prima and the Viva were very close to each other, so there was no opportunities for Norwegian to make any changes based on customer feedback, whereas the Aqua is the third ship. She wasn't that far along yet when the Prima came out, so this is an opportunity for Norwegian to make some changes, like that biggest changes is the obvious one. The aqua coaster replaces the go-karts up top. But I'm going to be curious to see, some of the complaints of Prima Viva have been that the public spaces are a little bit small and there's way too much retail space. So it's going to be interesting to see if they make any adjustments.
I am glad, though, that we'll get to experience the go-karts. I've never been on any of I've been on NCL a few times, but not on any of the larger, newer ships. And I would always get jealous when, people, my brother-in-law went on one of the ships that has go-karts, and he's telling me about it. And I'm like, oh, wow. So now I'm glad that I get to add that. Any idea what the aqua roller coaster is going to look like? Will it? Do you know? Have you heard much about it?
Yeah, no, it's a water slide coaster. And what's interesting, they say that they're racing, but if you look at the image, you can see that the two tracks are actually completely different. So it'd be interesting to take the rides and see what they're like on there. Now, I have not been on a go-kart one either, but when I do it, I'm definitely going to have to go with my dear friend Stephanie Mullen, who you interviewed just recently, because she is incredibly competitive. So when I finally get on a go-kart track, I'm going to have to beat her because she's really competitive.
So what else you have booked? I interrupted you at the Aqua.
No, you're perfectly fine. We have the Oceana Riviera in June. That's going to be 12 nights in Alaska. I'm so looking forward to that. It's a 12-night round trip from Seattle. And what's really cool is Oceana is nearly all-inclusive. And then with our group, it is all-inclusive because we've got the gratuities and a drinks package upgrade. So, and I'll tell you, when we were on Oceana for the holidays, I was eating lobster for lunch and dinner every day just because I could. It was included. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to have
the best
it, Walter.
Stop rubbing it in.
The main dining room is better than most specialty dining. And every night, if you think that's bad, Paul, every night at the buffet, lobster, shrimp, sirloin, catch of the day, and lamb chop made to order in the buffet.
Now, did you say this was a group cruise?
Yeah, this is a group cruise. Yeah, June 26th through July 8th, 2025.
Let me go back through my through my plans, which already my wife is giving me the side eye.
No, what's really nice is we've been looking at Oceana for a while, and what's nice is at the top of the mainstream, you basically got Virgin, Celebrity, Princess, Holland. They're kind of like what you would consider some of the best food and some of the best service, and then ultra luxury, Viking, Seabourn, Silversea, all of that. But then right in the middle, and very happily so, is Oceana. Look at, say, getting a suite or an aqua class on Celebrity or getting a suite on Princess. And then you look at the price of Oceana, which is almost all inclusive. You're like, wow, these prices are really good. And we can also wrap in the flight. So that's how we started really looking at them. And now that we've sailed them for the Christmas holidays, we have so many clients who are now starting to look at Oceana because the prices are good, the itineraries are really different, and the ships are only 650 or 1,200 passengers, so it's a small ship experience. So yeah, Paul, Alaska, June, you should come with us.
We'll talk about it.
We'll talk. Don't tell your wife. We'll talk about it on the site.
So what else do you have booked?
Right now, that's what we have booked for the moment. We do have the big group cruise in June on the Valiant Lady. So that'll be a 4-night. We've got like 135 people on that one, and we're thinking about some of the things that we got on our radar. The Carnival Freedom just came back from dry dock recently, and she's in Port Canaveral. So we're moving right now. We have to move to a new house next month. So after we move, we might make a run over to Port Canaveral, check out the Freedom. And Margaritaville at Sea has the brand new Islander coming out in June. And I had a great meeting with their team last week, or actually this week. And believe it or not, I'm really excited to see the Margaritaville Islander. So probably in July, I'll run over to Tampa and hop on the Islander.
What's on your cruise bucket list?
Viking Ocean. I want to get on Viking Ocean very bad. I desperately want to do a Christmas marketplace river cruise and I would like to do a river cruise that centers on culinary food.
Have you ever done a river cruise?
Not yet. That's going to be next on the list. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. 2025, 2026, maybe. Probably more 2026.
Going on my first river cruise this year.
Nice. I can't wait to hear about it.
Amma Waterways.
Oh yeah, Amma's great. Yeah, we booked people on Viking, Amma, Avalon, Uniworld, and now there's a company, Riverside, that's just coming along that bought all the old crystal ships, and the crystal ships were supposed to be some of the best on the river, so they're bringing those ships back, which can be really nice. I really want to try. There's this little cruise line in Greece, a family-owned cruise line called Celestial. It has really nice itineraries over there, so I'd like to try them as well. The ships are not that big; they're not like amazing, but the itineraries that they offer, because they have some stops that like all the rest of the folks don't, because their ships are a little bit smaller. And of course, I'd really like to get to Antarctica at some point too, as well. Primarily from southern Italy, so I would like to get down there and do a culinary exploration and do a land exploration down there. Of course, I'd love to. I guess it would go back to river cruising, but cruise the Nile, go to Egypt, see what that's all about. I've been to London, that's lovely, but Scotland, Ireland, those kind of places would be a lot of fun. And even just, we've got so much here in the US that I haven't seen. So I wouldn't even, one of these days, I really would like to get an RV, take like 2 months and just drive across this country, because there's so much I haven't seen here.
So in the intro, I discussed your segue to the travel field, and you mentioned your TikTok channel. In that short time you've been in the travel field, I mean, you've been cruising, as you say, many years, but in the short time you've been on the supply side, if you will, of the travel field, you shared with me some amazing accolades attained in just 15 months. Say a little bit, brag a little bit.
Well, what was interesting, I talked about that Scarlet Lady cruise, our very, very first time on Virgin Voyages, and I happened to meet a travel agent on that cruise. Surprise, surprise. A lovely gentleman, his name is Jim Drennan, and his wife, Judy. They happened to be on the cruise. They were top 100 sales agents for Virgin Voyages at the time. And I was in between jobs at that point. I mean, I really didn't know what I was going to do. I was like, I was kind of kicking this around, because Rebecca and I were like the couple that, you're going on a cruise, talk to Walter and Rebecca. So I don't know how many cruises we planned over the last 15 years for friends. I got to know a little bit about the business. I didn't know how it worked. I didn't know about host agencies and how it all works and how to get into it. And he explained it all. And so it was at the same time our TikTok audience was saying, gosh, I wish you were a travel agent. I would totally book through you, because you're giving a lot of great advice. And so in October of 2022, I had a social channel called Where's Walter, Instagram, YouTube, and all of that. And we just added the word travel in October of 2022, launched Where's Walter Travel. And in the first 14 months, we did almost $2 million in travel sales. And from what I was told, and I really didn't know how big of a deal that was, I was like, okay, yeah, people do that. And I found out that most home-based travel agents that start up are lucky to do 100,000 in the first 2 years. Yeah, so we're very fortunate that people do seem to really like what we're doing. We take here's the thing. Me as a travel agent, we got into it because I want to make really good vacations and good memories for my clients. I don't really care about what's in it for me. I hear so many, colleagues and people that I've met along the way who are like, I just want to get free trips, or it's so easy, or it's so this. When you're working with a travel agent, you're trusting this person. You might only have 1, 2, maybe 3 weeks off for the entire year, and you're trusting that this person's going to get it right and take care of your money, take care of your situation. And then if you need help, you're really hoping that person's going to be there to help you when things go sideways. And so I take that really seriously. And I like to think that, A, we got in it for the right reasons, and 2, we try to be there. I can't be there 24/7. I'm only one person, but I'm there like a good 13, 14, 15 hours every single day, making sure that I'm available for my clients. So we take it really seriously. that we're not just, oh yeah, it's fun to travel. Oh yeah, it's fun to be a travel agent. It is fun, but it is a heck of a lot of work because we go through a lot of training. We have to be trained on every single cruise line. We have to understand how all the cruise lines work. We have to understand our land partners because we're not just cruises. We have land partners.
Tell our listeners how they can contact you and book some cruises.
Well, first of all, Paul, we are a very proud travel partner of yours. So we're very excited about that. So one way they can do it is, I know there's a link on your website that will send them over to us and they fill out a form. And when they do that, that helps to support the podcast, which I'm extremely proud of. And I'm so thankful to you for allowing us to be your travel partner. I love what you do. I love what you bring to cruising.
Now, Walter, let me just interrupt. Listeners, you see why I like Walter so much. I told him to promote his travel services, and he promoted mine. Well, that's what you call a great guy.
Paul, I believe in collaboration is so much better. We is so much stronger than me. A team is so much better than I. We can a rising tide lifts all ships, and I'm a firm believer in that. Nobody does this alone. Right? You don't do it alone. And I'm very proud. I couldn't do this without my wife, and I certainly couldn't do it without the support of all my colleagues and everything behind. So, Paul, you putting your trust in us and trusting your name and your brand with us, that's huge for me. And I really appreciate that. So, of course, I'm going to promote you any chance I get.
Well, I'm honored and appreciative. So,
yeah.
Thank you.
But if people want to reach out directly, it's real simple. It's where'swaltertravel.com. There's a contact us link right on there. You set up a time. I give you a call, and that's how the process starts. And we charge absolutely nothing for our services. Our services are 100% free to you. And we stay with you right until you come home. So, booking your travel is only the first step. Then we're there to answer any questions, take care of any travel needs. What's really nice about working with a travel partner such as us is we have direct connections. If we're not getting the answers we want, I've got Brett at Princess, Tamika at Virgin, Kathy over at Royal Caribbean, Barbara at Celebrity. I've got actual people that I can pick up the phone and call and try to get issues resolved. And we do. I mean, if we need something taken care of, we get them involved directly, and usually we can make something happen.
Well, one more question about Where's Walter Travel. You've done some group cruises. Is that a lot of work?
A group cruise can be something that we're organizing. It could be something that you're putting together. Depending on the cruise line, a group is 5 to 10 cabins. It's actually rather small.
That's all.
Yeah, that's it. It doesn't have to be something big. Now, group space is not always available on every ship. There's only every cruise line allows only so many group spaces on every ship. But if there is group space on there, and even if it's not a group, even let's just say 3 families all trying to cruise together, that's a lot of work for whoever that point person is. Because, you're taking all the calls, you're trying to get things arranged for all 3 families. I take the pressure off of that because I suddenly become the point person, even just for the 3 families. We've got 3 weddings going on right now. Cruises are a great place to get married. So I've got 3 different groups that they're on Norwegian, Royal Caribbean, 2 on Norwegian, 1 on Royal Caribbean. And, what we do is we put up a web page. So, the bride and groom, they don't have to do anything. All they say is, here's the web page. Get in touch with Walter. He'll take care of everything for you. But yeah, it can be a lot of work, and you got, say, 10 or 15 family members on a ship. You're trying to wrangle them all, make sure they get the cabin they want, make sure they get the packages they want, make sure the dining reservations are set up. It becomes a lot of work for that person. So we take that load off of them. Cruises are a great way, family reunions, wedding. I think a cruise is a great spot to do like those fantasy football drafts that everybody does. I mean, can you imagine doing that on Royal Caribbean? You got Playmakers Bar with the wings and all that, and you're doing that. But there's plus, like-minded people. Virgin Voyages is very big into health and wellness. So, you get a big yoga group or a fitness group, put them on there. We can take bicycles onto cruise ships. So you got a big biking group wants to go on a particular cruise and set up biking excursions. You can do that. So yeah, it's a really great way for multi-generational or just big groups of people because there's something for everyone on pretty much every cruise ship.
Walter, this has been great. But before we let you go, a couple of, or a few fun, or maybe I should say light cruise questions. Then perhaps a fun oddball question, and oddball just means it doesn't necessarily have to do with cruise. So here's a softball, and I would love your answer on this one. But I told you your review on Scarlet Lady's food kind of puts me off the fence. So first question is, what are your favorite cruise drinks and cruise food?
Yeah, well, and any good milkshake is going to be good for me. But well, number one, obviously, anybody watching me knows that an old fashioned is my litmus test on any cruise ship. And the three best old fashions so far, the world class bar on Celebrity Cruises, that I think is probably the best bar at sea, period, on any cruise ship. Number two, the nutty old fashioned in the test kitchen. So when you go there, try that. It's amazing. And then number three, most recently on the Sky Princess, Elliot, who was the bartender at the Good Spirits Bar, showed me how to make a proper old fashioned the way he was taught, by muddling the sugar in the glass with the whiskey and then adding the other elements. And he wasn't supposed to make it because they're not allowed to make it that way. But his supervisor saw a TikTok that I did of him making another drink, and he allowed him to make that drink on camera for me. So that was awesome.
Were any of your old fashions the smoky old fashioned variety?
On Celebrity, they make a Zacapa in the clouds, and that's what they do. They put it in the smoke, and it's really nice. But their old fashioned is one of the best in that they do that's the first time I had shaved chocolate, like dark chocolate in it. And so when I'm home now, I use Aztec chocolate bitters to make mine. And then beyond that, a macchiato is like my coffee drink on any ship. And I'll say the best coffee at sea for me was the Havana bar on the Mardi Gras, that Cuban coffee that they make. Holy crap. Amazing. Then food. So I already said my favorite dinner of any, even land or sea, probably is Remy. That was unreal.
And that's saying a lot, land or sea. I sometimes say that, and folks don't believe me, but my best meal was on a cruise ship. So that's land or sea, and it was at Le Voyage by Daniel Ballard on Celebrity Beyond.
Oh yeah, we have not been there yet. Wow, yeah. So some of my more favorite meals, Rudy Sea Grill on Carnival Mardi Gras. That was absolutely fabulous. I already talked about Oceana. I mean, Oceana was just, here's the other cool thing about Oceana. So number one, pretty much everything was amazing on that ship. But the other cool thing about Oceana, Chef Jacques Papin happened to be on the ship for our cruise. The Chef Jacques Papin is a master chef. He's also the culinary advisor for Oceana. And I got a chance to hang out with him over a couple of days. In fact, it was kind of like having my grandfather on the ship. Once I had the first conversation with him, he's like, hey, he was like waving at me, calling me over, and we had some chances to chat. So that.
Oh yeah, you posted about that. Yeah, I remember
that. Best experience ever on a cruise ship. And then beyond that, it's like for simple pleasures, Shaq's Chicken on the Mardi Gras. Holy crap!
I love it.
Freaking amazing.
Loved it.
Yeah, that was dangerous. Actually, it was so good. It was dangerous. Best pizza, because this is always a source of contention. I have to say Alfredo's pizza on the Sky Princess was amazing. And believe it or not, a close second was that Mardi Gras. That Pizza del Capitano was quite good
Have you been on MSC?
And we have been on the MSC Seaside and the MSC Seashore last year.
I would have guessed when you started to say best pizza, I would have guessed that the first thing out of your mouth would be MSC.
They're good. They're very good. A little inconsistent. I would say they have the best sauce. They make a pizza that has no cheese on it. It's just a sauce, like very New York style. Sauce is really, really good, but it was a bit inconsistent. So one thing that MSC does have is that fresh burrata and mozzarella on the buffet. They usually have it 1 or 2 days on there. Oh my God, absolutely amazing. So that's really good. But yeah, that's some of my favorite foods so far at sea.
Okay. The second question, what's your most memorable or funniest or even most embarrassing cruise or port experience?
Embarrassing thing is probably more embarrassing for Rebecca. Not on a cruise. This was at Disney World when we were there and Bullseye came out. Now, Bullseye is the horse from Toy Story.
Okay.
And anybody who knows me knows that I am a 57-year-old child right now. I had never seen Bullseye before in the park. And Bullseye comes walking out. Oh, I know what it was. It was Woody and Buzz were standing there. And Rebecca's like, you want to go get a picture? I'm like, no, I've already seen them. And we start to walk away. She's like, oh, look, here comes Bullseye. And I turned around and I ran. I ran past the little kid, past everybody, and ran right to Bullseye and basically ran into him.
An adult cutting the line.
Oh, my God. My wife was like, oh, dear God, please no. So that's probably more embarrassing for her than it was for me. But what was that? The most fun, the most memorable? I think one of the most memorable things that's ever happened to me was on our holiday cruise. I went and did a mud dune buggy thing in Puerto Plata. And when they said mud, they weren't kidding, like walls of water coming up over the top. And that was just absolutely freaking insane. And I think the best thing that I've done with Rebecca was we did a sunset catamaran on our very first cruise back on the Norwegian Escape. Yeah, that was in St. Thomas, maybe. That was just, it could not have been a more beautiful sunset. And then as we were coming back in, the Celebrity Apex was coming out. So as we're coming in on this little catamaran, here comes this big, beautiful ship out with the most beautiful sunset. That was absolutely amazing.
So in addition to being a big kid, sounds like you're a bit of a romantic.
Very much a romantic, very much a romantic. But Rebecca was not in the mud buggy with me. She was at the beach. She's like, you go have a good time getting muddy. And I happened to connect with another fellow passenger and we got very, very muddy. But yes, I'm that guy that was really disappointed that I didn't get on the Hallmark Christmas cruise because I would kill to get on that cruise. I watch every Hallmark Christmas movie every year.
The oddball question. So let me say welcome to the Where's Walter travel followers and friends who are listening. We certainly hope you have enjoyed listening to the Joy of Cruising podcast and will come back to listen to additional episodes. And please feel free to join the Joy of Cruising podcast Facebook group. Walter, share one thing that my listeners, your followers and friends don't know about Walter.
Okay, so two quickies. One, I was a movie projectionist in high school and college, and I probably saw The Little Mermaid about 800 times because that was out when I was a projectionist. I would start all the movies. We had 8 screens. I would start all the movies, and then I would come back to that one, turn up the speaker, and I'd be dancing along to Sebastian and all the music. And number 2, my secret love would be a restaurateur with a little 12-table Italian trattoria. But Rebecca has threatened to leave me if I ever do that. So here I am, a travel agent instead.
Well, I wouldn't bet against the little Italian place with 12 tables sometime in the future. Walter, thank you so much for coming on the Joy of Cruising podcast, and all the best to Where's Walter Travel. You have already established yourself as a leader in the cruise community, and of course we'll be doing cruises we want to hear about. So I know we're going to have you back probably sooner rather than later. I'll see you on the ocean.
Love it. Love it.
The Joy of Cruising and Cruising Interrupted, each $16.99 plus shipping, and new release, The Joy of Cruising Again for $18.99 can be ordered at the link on thejoyofcruisingpodcast.com. For each of the 3 books, use the discount code Joy of Cruising Podcast and get $4 off. The Joy of Cruising books are also available at Amazon. Order the ebook at Amazon or your favorite online retailer. Stay in touch by joining the Joy of Cruising Podcast Facebook group or following the Joy of Cruising Podcast on Instagram. We're constantly adding new shows. Please leave a review and tell a friend about us. We hope you enjoyed this brief escape to the ocean. See you next week.